Hello, Internet. I am Pastor Recoil, and welcome to my parish. Today is Pentecost Sunday, and we're going to talk about it. Welcome to Pastor Recoil's Parish, where I talk about some things in the Bible that you may not have heard about in church, either because it's not quite appropriate for all audiences, or it just isn't something that's easy to talk about in a sermon. Today's readings for Pentecost Sunday are Acts 2, 1 through 21, Psalm 104, 24 through 35, Romans 8, 14 through 17, and John 14, 8 through 17, and 25 to 27. Today we're going to talk about God's Spirit and what the Spirit means for us. The day of Pentecost is 50 days after Jesus' resurrection and is loosely related to the Jewish Feast of Weeks, though that relation is more in regard to timing than anything else. The Feast of Weeks is 50 days after the first day of Passover, and it celebrates the wheat harvest and Moses receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. Christian Pentecost is really a different holiday, and it celebrates the sending of the Holy Spirit on Jesus' disciples, strengthening them to go and do what Jesus commanded them to do, to tell the story of Jesus throughout the world. But that doesn't, I think, mean what the church today seems to think it means. It's not a storytelling that's aggressive. Reading through the book of Acts, it seems like those early Christians live out Jesus' command to love one another first, telling God's story not so much with the things that they say, but the things that they do. And then when people wonder about what they're doing, Christians respond with Jesus' story. That is what happens on the first Pentecost. There's a bunch of people gathered together, and the Holy Spirit shows up like a fire tornado. And 120 or so of Jesus' disciples, the ones who have been hanging around after Jesus' ascension, start speaking in a whole bunch of different languages. All the gathered people are really confused, and some wanted to know more, but some thought the disciples were drunk. But they all asked among themselves, "What's going on? What does this mean?" And that's when Peter stands up to tell them. He retells the story of Jesus because they asked him to. And that keeps coming up in the book of Acts. It's pretty consistent that the disciples only tell the story of Jesus when someone asks what's going on. They don't force it on people without their consent. Now, once they've heard the story, they might not like what they're hearing. But in every instance that I can remember, the disciples talk about Jesus with permission. That's in line with what Jesus says in the gospel. Christians, after all, are supposed to follow Jesus' command to love. And of course, the Spirit will be with them as they follow that command. But love is still that most important thing. Everything about being a follower of Jesus is about love. And I think that's something that too many Christians have forgotten, to the point that we've even corrupted what love really is. We misunderstand what loving others is supposed to be about. And we think that love means telling people what to do and telling them what we think is best. Is there a time for lovingly correcting someone? Absolutely. But we have to be very careful that we're the right people to do that. And we have to be very careful that our correction doesn't cause harm, because causing harm isn't love. If we're really going to live in the reality of God's Spirit's presence in our lives, real, healthy, non-harming love, like the love that God has for us and God reminds us of through the presence of God's Spirit, that kind of love will be the center of everything that we do. So if you want to see more content like this, check out the links to my right, or click the logo just below my face to subscribe so you'll know when my next video comes out. Thank you for watching, and take the time this week to love your neighbor as yourself, especially if you don't like them all that much.